Charleston, South Carolina was just ranked the 8th hottest housing market in the country by US News and World Report. So, what's going on in Charleston is now a good time to buy or sell. Stick around because today I'm giving you an update as of June 2023 and you won't want to miss it. Hi, my name's Sarah. I'm a realtor here in Charleston, South Carolina. And if you want to know all there is about Charleston and the housing market, then please click subscribe and tap the bell for notifications so that you don't miss a thing. I get calls and emails every day from people just like you who are looking to buy and sell here in Charleston, and I would love to help you out. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and feel free to reach out to me. All my contact information is in the description. Whether you're ready to buy or sell in 9 days or 90 days, I would absolutely love to help you out. Now let's dive into today's topic, which is a housing market update for June 2023. A couple things to note here for context is that first, all of our housing market data comes in the rear, meaning we wait for a month to pass, we aggregate the data from that month, and then we look at it the next month. So right now it's about mid-June 2023. So all the data I'm going over today is from May 2023. The next thing to note is that this data is for the Tri-County in Charleston. So that is Charleston County, Berkeley County, and Dorchester County. Those are our three counties that make up the MLS here, and there's a lot of diversity within these markets. So the numbers and information I'm going over today is really a broad stroke. It's meant to be helpful, but it can't be the sole indicators that you're looking at because you have to look at a hyper local level, meaning your exact subdivision, your street, your overall location, and just so many other factors that, of course, I always recommend talking to an agent about your particular situation, but I think it's also still helpful to understand the wider market at large so you can set your expectations and just be a well-educated consumer. Real estate is hyperlocal, which means what's going on in Charleston is not what's going on in other parts of the country, other states, other towns. So that's why I wanted to make this market update so that you can be well informed here locally in Charleston. Okay, so let's get into it. The first data point that we look at is, of course, the median price. So for May 2023, the median priced home was $419,000. Now this includes single family as well as condos and townhouses. Single family, if you exclude the other two categories, is $433,000 as the median price point. Now these prices are up 3.1% as compared to a year ago, May 2022. So in Charleston, prices are still appreciating year over year. And in fact, in some markets, the appreciation has actually been 8% or higher, which is really huge, especially compared to a lot of other markets this past year that have really cooled down after the boom of COVID. So some of the hottest areas in Charleston that have seen 8% or more year over year price appreciation are places like James Island, Johns Island, West Ashley, North Mount Pleasant, downtown Charleston, both inside and outside of the crosstown, Hanahan, Wando and Cainhoy, and the Somerville/Ladson and Ravenel area. All of those areas are still seeing quite a lot of increases, partially because inventory is so low in most of these areas, and or they have some new construction homes that are maybe in a higher tier price point. So what's going on with inventory? Well, inventory just means how many homes are on the market. So in May 2023, the total number of active listings was 2,407, which is a very low number. A lot of people in real estate here say that 10,000 homes on the market is about a balanced market as far as, is it a buyer's market, is it a seller's market? And about 10,000 homes is where we would need for it to be for all else being equal. So we're about a quarter of that number, which is very low. Things changed so much with the pandemic because of historically low interest rates. So right now, 4 out of 5 homeowners have an interest rate below 5%, and nearly 1/4 have a rate below 3%. So when you think about that and realize that interest rates right now are high 6%, it makes sense that a lot of people aren't wanting to trade in their lower interest rate for a higher interest rate. So this is what the experts in the industry are calling the lock-in effect. It's really creating this long-standing standstill of a market because people, unless they really have to move, like for example, they are getting divorced or they're getting relocated for work or there's been a death in the family or some big life change like that that really requires a move, then people that just are more in the camp of, well, it'd be nice to move, but we really don't have to, they're mostly staying in place because when they look at the numbers, the financials just don't make sense for them with such a higher amount of an interest rate compared to what they have on their current mortgage. So you can understand that this is really creating this gridlock, and the only thing that's probably going to change it is when rates eventually come down. Now, we don't know when that's going to happen. The Fed did pause interest rate hikes earlier this week, but the jury's out as far as to what's going to happen the rest of this year and next year. Most people are in agreement that it's probably going to stabilize about where we're at or maybe slightly lower, but we're not going to see them, in the 3s or the 4% again. So this is going to become the new normal, and we're just going to have to see what happens. Now, of the 2,400 homes for sale, only about 10% of those were listed at $300,000 and under. This is a problem because housing affordability has been an issue for a while, but especially since COVID, because prices just skyrocketed with housing, making it the most unaffordable it's ever been for a lot of people. So with high interest rates, and then depending on your income level and your debt level and so many other factors, that will determine what you can afford as far as your mortgage and your lending standards. So a lot of people might be getting qualified in this $200,000 to $300,000 price point, yet they don't have a lot of selection. So Charleston is definitely a pricier market. It's above average compared to the national market. And if you're wanting to buy and are in this price point, then you're probably going to be looking at a condo or a townhouse or living somewhere much further on the outskirts. Now, of this 2,400 number of active listings, about 25% of that is new construction, which are homes built in 2022 or 2023. This is a really huge percentage of the total inventory. We have a lot of new construction here in different areas, a lot out in the Somerville area, Johns Island, Ravenel, out in Hugie and Wando and Cainhoy, which is to the east of Daniel Island off Clements Ferry Road, kind of to the northwest of Mount Pleasant. And then we have pockets of other new construction in various areas. New construction is very appealing for a lot of buyers right now because obviously the house is new and shiny and people love that. They love the modern look and just the cleanliness and being the first person in the door. But from a financial perspective, the builders are able to offer more incentives as far as prices, interest rate buy downs, and things like getting, let's say, a $15,000 design credit to pick out your finishes. So they're making it very enticing for buyers, and a lot of buyers are choosing to go that route. So if you're interested, I have another video called What to Know About New Construction. If you're thinking about buying, I highly recommend watching that video because there's so much that you just don't know if you're either a first-time home buyer or you just never bought new construction before. And my hope is to help you get educated so that you know what to look for if you are wanting to shop for a new construction home. So definitely check out that video. And I also have a link in the description below where you can just put in your email. It takes 3 seconds and you'll get to see all of the current inventory of new construction in Charleston if you'd like to browse that. The next metric that we look at is called days on market. This is how many days does it take for a house to first get listed on the MLS to then go under contract? And the average through the Tri-County area is only 11 days. Now, historically speaking, before COVID, for a lot of areas, this was 60 days, maybe 45 days or 30 days. So 11 is still very low. It's not as low as we saw in 2021, early 2022. I believe it was 3 days on market at one point. So it's definitely going up, which is good, but it's still fairly low, all things considered. Some homes are still getting multiple offers if they are in super desirable locations and hot spots and priced really well. So they might be on the market for 1 or 2 days. But interestingly, about a third of the homes are on the market for 60 plus days. So that's really bringing this average up. And you might be wondering, well, why would some homes be sitting for 60 or 90 days and some homes are selling in 1 day? Well, there's so many factors that go into that. Of course, location is huge, and then competition is another thing to take into account. So for example, I was just talking about new construction, let's say in Somerville, where there's a ton of new construction, that whole general area. And if you have a home that's next to a new construction neighborhood, but your home is 5 or 10 years old, you're competing with the new homes. And with all the incentives the builders are doing, you just might not have a lot of action on your house, because from the buyer's perspective, they're like, well, why would I buy a house that's 10 years old when I could just get something brand new with all the warranties and the lower interest rates and things from the buyer or from the builder. So you always have to look at what you're competing against when you're going to sell, and that can help give you an idea of what you can expect as far as not just price, but other factors like how long it will take your house to go under contract. Now, of course, other factors are what kind of shape is the house in? Is it a total fixer-upper that needs to be gutted and have new plumbing and electrical and a new roof and new floors and everything? Or is it something that is turnkey and updated and just gorgeous that any buyer would love to have? So all of these factors go into how quickly a home will sell, among other things. The next metric that we'd like to look at is called months of inventory. This means how long would it take the existing amount of homes to sell if no other homes were to come on the market? And right now we're at about 1.6 months. That's it. That's not a lot of inventory. Again, as we talked about earlier, we're in these very low days on market and months of inventory and just amount of houses available because of the lock-in effect and all these other factors. So it's not really a surprise that the months of inventory are only at 1.5 months, because a lot of people aren't selling. Now, this again is going to vary depending on where you're located. And I do want to mention that the highest months of inventory right now is actually Folly Beach, which is one of the prime beach destinations here. It's been a vacation hotspot for decades, just south of James Island. But interestingly, Folly Beach in February passed a new ordinance about short-term rentals. The locals decided that they wanted to cap the number of short-term rentals, and just if you're listening and don't know what that means means Airbnbs and VRBOs, people that are coming here to rent for a weekend or for a week. And they capped it at 800. There are currently 1,200 licenses for a short-term rental. So now you can't apply for a new license, and you also can't have the license convey with the sale of a property. So if you're buying a property and it already has an existing license, when you buy it, it doesn't automatically convey to the new owner. So this is obviously an issue for Folly Beach, because if you're buying there, most people who buy either want to buy it as an investment property that they can rent out the entire year, or maybe they want to live there half the year but rent it out the other half of the year, and now they're not able to do that anymore. So the only people that can afford Folly Beach now would have to be primary residents, and meaning they live there full-time, or they can just afford to have the second home and they don't need to rent it out. So this is really limiting the buyer pool. And ever since this passed in February, the homes on Folly Beach are mostly just sitting and not selling nearly as quickly, and that's why it has the highest months of inventory on the market at the moment, is because of this new rule. It'll be really interesting to see where this goes if other localities start to follow. But on the state level, there's actually something on the floor of the House right now where they're talking about wanting to make it illegal for local governments to be able to put a cap on short-term rentals. They think it brings in a lot of revenue for the state, and the state doesn't want local government to have the authority to be able to cap it. So if that passed at the state level, then it would have to trump what's going on in places like Folly Beach. So I'm going to keep following this because it's very interesting and very important in the real estate market, and I'll keep you updated in these videos as time goes on. The last metric I want to go over today is called the sell to list price ratio, which is a bit of a mouthful, but what that means is how much does a home actually close for in relationship to what it was sold for. So right now in May 2023, that was 95.7%. What that means is, for example, if your house was $500,000, then it would close for $478,500. That's 95.7% of the price. This is great to know because obviously if you're selling your house, you want an idea for, on average, what you're gonna actually close for versus just what you're listing it and putting it to market for. Again, this varies widely depending on what particular location and neighborhood you're in, because there are still multiple offers happening. So those houses are going to close probably at list price or higher than list price. But then some of the houses that I mentioned that maybe are sitting for longer than that, they're likely going to close under list price. So it varies widely. This is just an average, but I do think it's just a helpful metric for you to have in mind if you are considering selling. Okay, so to wrap this up, what does a sell mean if you're a buyer or a seller? Well, if you're a seller, I really do believe that in most areas, it's a great time to sell. As we discussed, some areas are up 8% year over year. And if you're in an area that's very desirable with low inventory and your house is in good condition, then you are probably going to sell super quickly and get the price that you want. So it could really be a great time for you to sell if that's something you're interested in. On the buy side, does it make sense to buy? Well, it really depends on your unique situation. I always recommend talking to a mortgage lender and getting pre-approved because they're the ones that are going to tell you what you can afford, what the bank is actually going to loan you. And until you have that conversation, you're just not going to know. It's all just going to be guesswork. And the calculators online are kind of okay, but they really don't give you the full picture that a lender can tell you by looking at your credit and just really taking a deep dive. But in general, I would say that if you can afford to buy and you plan to stay in that house for five years or longer, then I do think it makes sense. Why? Because right now interest rates are higher than they've been for the last few years, and there's still a good amount of buyers out here in the pool. Well, just think what's going to happen when interest rates go down, let's say next year maybe. Well, all these people that are kind of on the fence waiting for interest rates to drop who would like to buy are going to come out, and you're going to have even more competition. So if you want to limit your competition, I would say that now is a better time to buy than in the future. Again, if you can afford it, and if you are comfortable without having to stretch too much financially, it makes a lot of sense. And one day in the future, whether it's a year or 2 years or 5 years from now, when rates do drop and you have appreciation, or aka more equity in your home, then you can also refinance at that time. So that's just icing on the cake if you are able to buy now. I hope that helps. Again, please leave any comments below. I would love to answer about more, specific areas or just any questions you have about the housing market today. And I really hope you found this video helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.